Hello. Wow. Reading. Fucking hell.
Time to crack open the novel.
Oh, I blinked and went bloop. I was like, no, I don't have time for this. And then I blinked again and went bloop. It's another entire fucking list. I'm like, I really don't have time to catch up on this twice now. So I just like left it, and like at the end of the day, I'm like, God damn it.
Pretty intense.
I think the sound effect you were looking for, Bill, was actually skadoosh.
Well, yeah.
Douche. Let's see here. CRB dump for Scott, magic notes, equipment notes, combat notes. Where Scott posted a picture of tables. I don't see the tables. Is that just from?
You have to go under the CRB dump for Scott. You have to go to the very last one. The other guys, not the other guys. Oh, I'm sorry. It's in my equipment notes actually, because it's the Scott Excel equipment, and then there's a document just loaded.
Oh, it's just the document. Yeah, so I did see that.
Yep.
Nice. It's Scott.
Oi!
It's a Scott.
Well, there he is.
Saying hi.
Yep.
Ooh, they got backgrounds now. Do that. Nice. That's properly thematic.
It's so weird how like glitches out around certain things, like the photos in your background get snagged.
Yeah.
It makes you look surreal. It's so uncanny valley. I still haven't figured out how to actually do backgrounds.
You just click the little on the bottom bar there where you see your camera. Click the little down arrow, and it should say, all the cameras you have available to you, and then change video background.
Ooh, I see it now. Oh my God, Bill, you need more light, dude. You are the background.
He's phasing in and out of existence. Pop you guys out.
It's just like popping in.
Yeah, I guess I could actually try turning on the light or something.
Yeah. See how that does.
There.
That works.
Yep.
I like the snick. So we're talking about mechanics tonight, right?
There's a lot. I mean, if I'm gonna break it down in any capacity, there's a lot to cover, and it's kind of like, I don't know, whoever wants that hot potato first topic, it's kind of whatever.
Well, there's that damage rolls and armor thread that you guys are jerking on about.
It's weird. I think I'm okay with it not making me all funky looking. I clear my background for that reason.
I have my own custom background that I made.
Which is
Man.
odd because your face is actually matching the color scheme that's in the background there.
Yeah, that's
Here
weird.
we go. Vaporwave works.
Pop
I love
out.
that, Scott, that you found the go to sleep GIF. I've been looking for that for the longest time, like on Jiffy.
Oh,
Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep.
Just freaking Pound Town.
I can't find it in Discord.
Yeah, I've looked for a while because there's many times when that's like exactly the feeling I wanted to convey.
Yep.
So we're just gonna start on the synergy system shadows and go through your general notes. Like what we need. I need
So
somewhere
this
to
is
fly,
kind of
fly
be
to.
like I'm actually okay with it just sort of being open at the start here, and I'm gonna like begin this whole thing because if I can record this and put it out as a podcast, this little piece here will be important. So more or less, based on what I've been discussing so far with Scott, because he and I've been bouncing back and forth like a lot.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, no.
Been-
Not sorry at all. The biggest thing is that we're hitting like shadows more or less 3.5 alpha at this point. The changes that I'm looking to make are gonna finally level all of this stuff out, and it's in these categories where we're dealing with the combat, the actual damage system, how it interacts with armor, health and healing, its critical baseline for everything else in the game as far as action's concerned. Then it's dealing with the magic system and inserting that, because that's going to get rid of all of the White Wolf marks for the most part, like only stealing the base mechanics and reformulating them to match what I want to do inside the system. So that's the next thing. So we've got like the combat and damage and all that. Then we have the magic, and then finally it's the archetypes. And refitting those so that the powers make sense, so that everything else kind of lines up, because the action is going to be the foundation for all of that. It's, how in the world of survival, the combat system is what decides who wins. So that's like the base level, right? So we have to figure that out before the magic comes in, because that'll confuculate everything going down, and then you have to deal with all of the powerhouses and the archetypes in the middle of it. So that's basically the rundown.
Spelled out.
What?
Confuculate. Can
Yeah.
you get that written out?
Give it a try.
The lexicon of D.
Yeah. Confuculation. It's like...
That needs to be an advantage you can take. Specific to Andrew's character type.
Oof.
I cast Confuculate. Roll 10 chaos dice. Let's just see what happens.
So if I were to run a synopsis on everything that I've gotten accomplished in the last week, holy hell. So got all of the armor put in, price tagged, described, inserted. It's all there. Like, the armor's, in it. I guess so that's kind of where it started, and now I'm on to the weapons list, which, as I've mentioned before, that has growing from right now 111 entries, and it will be upwards of a lot more than that whenever I'm finished.
Is that like the rifles and the martial arts and the SMG and the heavy?
Yep, because I'm organizing everything in the weapons list. I'm organizing it by skill. And I'm putting things like...
That's the challenge, is there's 10 different categories, and so you're like, okay, I'll make 15 different weapons, for each category.
I'm kind of just going with
And
need
then-
to have a certain amount of choice, which is, yeah.
Yeah, what I did when I created it was just very bland. I said 2 cheap weapons, 2 average weapons, 2 grays, 2 greens, 2 blues, 2 purples, 2 oranges.
Yep. So the weapon system is a daunting thing, but what's funny is that I'm not sitting here overwhelmed like I was before. I'm just kind of going I'm going to continue to trickle this in. And
That's how you do it.
right, yeah. And occasionally, whenever I feel like I'm going to have a brain fry, I just kind of do something weird. Like at the moment, according to the corporations, Smeagol is in charge of Neurodyne Industries. I'll change that when I feel like it.
And my daughter said,
Precious.
is D making ADHD his... I don't want to say the word. Yes, sweetie. Yes, he is.
What?
She was going to say, is he making it his bitch?
Oh,
But she's 11 and she's not allowed to say that word, and so she's like, is he making it his... I don't want to say the word.
oh, that's really funny.
That's awesome. But yeah, so that's where we're at. So the weapon system got me onto an entirely different track, because I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? Which brings me to the actual system changes, which is where we've got the armor and then, of course, the damage and its interaction with AP. So this is the part where I'm going to be interested in your guys' feedback for sure. To start it off, I'm extremely confident, given how much I've tinkered with this, that not only will this be balanced, but it'll be fun as hell. But I still want to know what you guys think. So it got me thinking about, okay, if I'm going to put all these weapons in here, how do they interact? Because what I'm doing is a mass reduction in numbers. Armor will be restricted to 50 at the most. And if we're going to apply anything that would be considered hard to kill advantages or anything that increases your own your skin toughness, I'm going to label all of that under a single category instead of going dermal, subdermal, I'm just going to consider it natural armor and just go, it's all going to be categorized as that. In other words, I'm basically just saying, okay, yes, your endoskeleton has been reinforced by the Myanmar that you got. It's your natural armor now. So we're just going to go like that. Okay, one set of numbers. You just stockpile and stack that shit up, right? It's going to be simplified, but it doesn't lose anything. It's the same exact interpretation because it all stacks on top of itself, one way or another. I lowered the amount of armor for everything. There's nothing that's going to, like, as far as the external armor that you can wear, there's like one armor piece, I think, that even hits 50, just one. And it's this pair of powered armor sleeves by Dark Sun. And
Yeah.
I took the idea, thinking about it, I was like, what if I took Ninja Scroll, where the guy had the armored sleeves that I thought were so badass, linked it in the back across the shoulders where it actually has the power to come from it, and just make it a powered armor set of sleeves, and it would totally work because it's using your body and itself to support everything that it's doing instead of having to rely on only part of what's going on there. It's just badass to me. And then you could go like, well, you could put the armor sleeves on and you could buy like a heavy duty flak vest and wear that over the top. So you got armored arms, armored chest. Now you just put a helmet. Like, you can piecemeal this and make an insane armor from what you're doing, but buying all these pieces separately instead of buying whole suits. So that was pretty cool as far as it went down. But, you know, I've lowered the numbers significantly because they can't even reach 80, 90, whatever. So you're going to be boosting up on your own natural armor and toughness when you get things like hard to kill, etc. So that'll stack
Is that
up.
a cap as well
Huh?
on like hard to kill, toughness, stuff like that?
So the cap in and of itself still kind of remains being either I'm going to reduce how much the benefit is in that advantage by saying instead of like hard to kill giving you this like overall boost, but it's just one. So it's like I'm not really going to worry about that. I think hard to kill just boosts your health levels. What was it that gives it? It was thick skin. Thick skin gives you this massive jump. It's like 4 every time you do it. I'm going to make that more like 1. So you just go beep, beep. You're still going to get an advantage, but you have to buy it significantly more in order to get it, which means I may drop its category from the point level it is to something much lower. So it's easily accessible, but it doesn't give you as much of a benefit. Like I said, it's a balancing factor thing because, like I said, the armor was getting insane. It was starting to go way up there and becoming meaningless.
So at your sheet or thing you put down here, it looks like you broke it out into protection type and resilience, right?
Right, you're talking about the armor itself? Yes. So I needed a way for armor to become disposable. So at first I was like, well, you know, maybe it's the number of times that it takes damage as opposed to the damage itself. And then I was like, nah, we're going to go something different. I'm basically going to create a damage threshold for that armor, and depending on how, you know, like how awesome the armor is, the higher that resilience threshold will become. Meaning that if you take a certain amount of damage, which, you know, you just have to remember, like, okay, my armor chest piece, for instance, is capable of taking upwards of 20 damage without having to worry about it. If I get something that hits me for for more than that, even by 1 point, if I hit 21 and up for that amount, so if I take something huge like an explosion or like a sniper rifle hit or something like that, you have to roll an integrity check to find out if the armor gets dipped. And so,
Right.
you know, and it's based on its category. So light armor, you can have it fail that integrity check 3 separate times. If it fails that 3rd time, the armor is compromised, which means you don't get its usefulness anymore. It's been basically shot to shit. So
I like that. We were talking about it before. I love that change. I'm scrolling through the CRB right now, and I just like had a little like inspiration strike. That's an opportunity to use some underutilized skills
yeah,
that we have to
Hey,
repair your armor, or
yes,
you know,
Yeah.
something like that lets you get
And-
one last. I can cobble these things together to make my armor hold together for one more hit, or
right,
you know, something
It
like
also
that.
it also adds intensity for longer fights,
yes,
Yeah.
right? So you've gone through, and by the time you get to that end boss, your armor might be completely just done.
yep.
are you guys talking about
So-
armor durability?
So
Uh,
in
resilience specifically, yes.
Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild, so Breath of the Wild, the most recent Zelda game, right? They introduced durability on weapons. Your armor's fine. Your armor never breaks, because that would be a pain in the ass to have to go and like find the special armor again. But
Right.
your weapons break all the time. Mid-battle, you'll be like slash slash, sword just shatters.
Yeah.
Right.
Take that one shot and your bow just shatters, right? And that added such a cool twist to the game, because you had a capacity of how much you couldn't just like carry 50 swords,
Right.
right? You had to like,
You had to
I'm
contemplate.
gonna
it.
go do this boss fight. I had to make sure that I have stuff that's ready to go.
Oh, Drew,
It's
just to
like-
catch you up, the big changes that we're talking about is that armor is now split into two different stats. There's damage resistance and armor resilience. Damage
Yeah.
resistance can go up to 50 damage resistance.
Yeah,
and
well,
armor. Go ahead.
No, finish your thought, and then I was going to jump in with mine.
Yeah, I just want to catch you up with like what they've been talking about.
No, I
Uh,
appreciate it. This reminds me very much of what we worked under when we played Warcraft. You had armors that had certain strengths, and then you could beat the crud. Remember that? We'd beat the crud out of weapons and armors and have to go back and find someone to fix your armor.
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool that we have to go fix your armor. D. Something else that you'd mentioned, but I haven't seen or found. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but haven't seen is the fact that we're reducing the overall HP of everyone, right?
So that's actually kind of going in another direction.
Or health level, I should say.
Yeah.
Because
So
I remember you saying that a normal human has 40 health points,
Right.
with like a few health levels.
if they have max, they have 40. So if they have 10 health levels, meaning a 10 body, that means that they get the full 40. They get the advantage of having 40 hit points.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd said 40 was the standard human.
Yeah, that's the
That
max.
is different.
Standard human's 20.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
because they only
of
have 4 or
stats
5.
of 5.
Yeah. The body dictates how many health levels you have open, and if you go above 10, then you get boosts like it's the same idea. It's like you get the advantage of hard to kill stacked on top of it just from having a body that's amazing over the end.
Right. That's pretty crazy as far as like, that's why all these other things need to happen as far as damage and how lethal weapons are.
Yeah.
And then of course, so let's finish armor before we talk about weapons. I see in here the next thing you talked about after armor resilience, and in your armor list you list out their resilience. Yeah. Yep, you do.
Oh, you're in the note. One note.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm just staring at it.
Yeah.
I sent the one note to Drew just to make sure he had it.
Yeah, I've
Bill,
had
do
it
you have
open
access
for a
to
few
the-
days. Thank you.
Do you have access to the OneNote? Are you looking at it with us right now,
Who are you asking?
Bill? Just making
No,
sure that he's
I was
following
looking at
along.
something else.
Oh, you're fine. I just want to make sure that you're like we're right now. All I can see is that your lovely faces, but I have right next to your lovely faces is the OneNote that we're referencing. The next thing is armor piercing.
Yeah. I'm so excited about that.
So
Yeah.
armor piercing is all about whatever the AP level is, that's how much damage it just whatever you have is negated. So for example, if I had ultralight armor that did, let's say, maximum 10 resistance, right? Protection, I should say. And someone shot me with let's say a high armor piercing that happened to be at 10, that'd mean it's as if I wasn't wearing that armor if it hits me, right?
Well, that was
that
the
how that
original
works?
concept. It was originally kind of the same idea as being fixed, but I realized that armor introduces sort of a degree of variability. Like the armor itself is being challenged by this weapon that is piercing through it, but it's not going to be it's not always going to be clean. There's going to be other factors involved. So what I did is I flipped the traditional thing. So normally in a lot of systems, it's usually die first, fix, certainty after. So you get a certainty bonus of some kind or another, like your skill is +5 or whatever. It adds
Yeah,
that.
D6 plus 10.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
As far as like whether or not it hits.
Well, no,
Or
like when
damage.
you're dealing like damage or anything, it's any check. Like that is the general rule, which is dice first, bonus after. And in this
Okay.
case, I'm kind of like inverting that by using fixed numbers. So if I say in this case for damage, I'm always saying like fixed first, no dice is originally what it was. But I was like, but when you introduce the AP, there's a factor of vulnerability here to whether or not it's going to be super effective or not. You know what I mean? Maybe the armor is just, it's like angle and the rest of that stuff. There's variables in play. So I was like, let's flip it. We'll take the fix.
Okay, so
We'll take the fix as long as you're not wearing any armor or protection at all. We're going to assume that a maximum amount of threat is possible. You know what I mean? But you still have your natural body and all of that stuff going into it. So you reduce the damage down a little bit for being super tough. Put on the armor. What happens is that the AP now represents a die you roll. I'm sticking at D4s right now because I think that is the perfect amount. So if you have an AP 3 anything, you go okay, I'm shooting at this target. They are not able to avoid two of my bullets for whatever the reason it might be. Or maybe they can't stop the sword thrust that I'm pushing through, or any of that. So instead of taking maximum amount of damage whenever you're armored up, you roll whatever the AP value is. So you go okay, if it's AP3, roll 3d4, that's the damage that passes through. With one key idea, the damage cannot surpass what the weapon or your skill combined or any of that other stuff. It can't maximize over the damage that's listed on your sheet. So if the damage of the weapon you're using taps out at 5 damage, even if you had 2d4 armor piercing, it's only going to hit for 5 damage if you roll max. Because it can't do more than what the weapon was designed to do in the first place.
That's okay. That's different than what you wrote down on the sheet. As far as it's counted as double.
Go to the
resilience.
Synergy system notes. There's a little thing in there that's called ideas. It's in lavender. It will plaster all of my "this is it" kind of moments.
There it is. I just had to scroll over.
You gotta open that window a little bit to the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to be archiving a whole bunch of stuff that I had as old ideas or striking them through because, like I said, it is a work in progress, constantly changing, and so. But the ideas that are sticking with me, I'm putting there in that particular page, going this is the angle I'm going to take. And whenever I find myself not able or not willing to go further on that, I'll wipe it out and get it out of there. But
Drew, what were you going to say?
I have a few questions. My first is this information that would be just common knowledge for all players to be handling, or is this just knowledge that would be the GM running things?
These are the
or
mechanics.
A combination thereof.
Right, so the mechanics that I'm talking about right here, these would be in the PHB for people to understand.
Got it. Okay. Yep. And then my next is, to what degree is adding all this stuff, which is super cool, to what degree does that pull away from the story?
It's not going to.
Aspect.
The reason why is because it's supposed to support the GM and the experience, period. And if we play test,
and that makes sense.
Yeah, if we play test it and it turns out this is too much or too complicated or whatever, back to formula.
And the other thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at this idea that of capping the armor protection, and I'm not against it. I think it's actually really good, but one of the things that I've come to really enjoy about this game is it's bound in certain realities, but if you're creative enough and you're innovative enough, you find ways to push those limits.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if something should be mentioned that, yes, you don't go higher than this. However, if you're crafty enough, because there's always this is a cyberpunk universe.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be innovations. That's how all weapons and armor throughout history have worked. Somebody comes along with a bigger stick.
Right.
Just go read the Butter Battle book, and things eventually get too big, and then you hope people dial it back. But I wouldn't start off as that as an opening, but to have it as a more advanced option.
So what I'm doing here is to help you with your point. First of all, when we say that the armor is capped at 50, I'm saying that the external stuff you buy and wear will be capped at 50 because, first of all, that is a limitation of the technology which you have available. It does not account for anything natural that you would be throwing onto your person at the same time. You might have a grand total that goes above that based on if you piecemeal things together.
So this is the technology of the time. This is the best you're going to get because of the technology. Now, if you're the guy that goes home and says, I bought the standard model and I souped it up because I just got that skill, we're now in a different level.
Right. You would roll in like an advanced tech roll and be like, I found some way of, interweaving carbon fiber so that it does this wacky thing.
And that I feel should be a little bit more clear, because I read this as total armor protection is boom, that's your armor protection. But if it's the best technology that exists at this time is a maximum 50-60. However, to the innovative and creative, sky's the limit.
Well, yeah,
Well, if you
that
look
is
at like
core principle to
the-
the whole thing.
the
Yeah.
a D&D sort of situation, right? This plate armor offers a value of 10. That's what it offers. Now,
Gotcha.
if you're faster, smarter, whatever, you can increase that because you're able to get out of the way. Like we were talking, like, is the sword actually ever missing you, or is it just never landing a hit that is enough to hurt you because you're turning it away with a shield or
No,
it's
and that's
landing
part
blows,
of the
whatever.
that's part of the creativity of the game. I was just
Yeah.
asking mainly for one clarification.
Yeah.
And two, making sure that there's sort of a seamless flow between these ideas. And I accept that, everything you say totally makes sense, and I think it captures the spirit of the game very well.
Yeah, so the weapons became the next big thing, which is like, how, like you were saying, it's how do you answer the question of, okay, they've got this armor, what's the bigger stick? One of the answers to that question is the armor piercing in specific, dealing with the fact that you have to be able to get through it in order for you to be able to do something. But again, and also putting a liability into the armor, being that if you get enough hits, do enough damage all at once, the armor's not going to hold. And it introduces a whole new, element of interest with the combat situation altogether, especially whenever dealing with the fact that technology gets introduced, and that's where the power armor stuff gets in there. That's really interesting. Power armor and vehicles, mech suits, all of that other stuff, whenever you start dealing with those the resilience elements, you start having to roll on this little table I put in there as a starting point, but I'll have more. It's going to be this system failure tables, because what happens is that whenever the armor becomes penetrated to a certain degree, unless it's something huge like a light anti-tank weapon or something like that that's meant to get on the inside, you can damage the systems that are running first and then the pilot. And so the idea is that if you start failing resiliency checks whenever you're trying to, or whenever resilience is being tested and you fail the integrity checks, if you fail those, you start having to roll on the system failure table and your armor can start fucking up.
No, but that
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm hitting your armor enough. Eventually, it falls apart. If I can get in, the thought that popped in my head is the Titanic.
Right.
You can have the greatest whatever you got, but if I can get in and start messing with that inside and messing with those internal systems, and then those internal systems systematically fail, it's going to be catastrophic.
Right.
Now, I think one of the things that separates this game from others that I really like is the defender is not passive.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
There is a defensive role. It's not like,
Elaborate, please.
well, if you attack someone, you're making your attack roll. In other games, you're attacking against a flat target. Right? My target is 10. I'm swinging my sword. If I get 10 or higher, I hit. If I get less than 10, I miss. And in this, you're rolling a dodge or a parry sort of defense, or a will check defense, something like that. And so you could have
It's
a
a
character
skill
that
check.
has low armor. They're in street clothes, but they're very, very high dodge. And so you're attacking them, but you can't even hit them because they're able to dodge out of the way.
Yeah.
Supernaturally
that-
high. A werewolf isn't necessarily going to be wearing layers and layers of exosuit, but you may not be able to land a hit because they've got some natural armor, and also their move, or a vampire is getting out of the way.
Yeah, it's the sense
so
that
the
things.
defense is active, which I
Mhm.
think is
Well,
is a really cool.
It's active, and I think I would also add in there, it's fluid.
I agree.
There's
Well,
a
your notes
fluidity
here,
to it.
Combat should be fast, be simple, be chaotic. Yes, I love that philosophy.
It's
I
and
think
it's a hard balance to do simple and chaotic. 'cause
That's
normally
what
if it's-
won me on the fixed damage to a degree. Is
Right.
how many times have games slowed to a crawl because of, okay, now everyone's got to sit and roll their d20, Okay, I do 5d10 damage. I got a 1, I got a 6, I got a 4, like, and then you're like, okay, so I got a crit, but I only did 6 damage because my damage rolls were bad. How does that work? Right, like, and it sucks all of the air out of the room.
No, I Scott, I have to agree with you that there's something about combat in Shadows that has this real, like, it's like I'm in a
4
movie.
freaking sessions of just combat, and it was exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
This raw combat.
Like in the goals
but-
of D&D, each edition have been to like reduce the amount of time in, even it's a combat oriented game, but
Mhm.
reduce the amount of time of combat more and more and more, so that they're like 5th edition, an average encounter should only take you 45 minutes, and you're like, what? For one fight?
Yeah.
But in
Shadows.
Shadows, you're like, well, we spent 4 hours in this fight, and I'm like, I know, it was amazing.
Yeah, but what I always think is so funny is D, you'll come in and you'll be like, okay, I know we just spent 2 hours on this, but that was only like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actual
Right.
fight in real life, real
Because
time
Riv
is
is like
a minute and
teleport,
a half.
uppercut, teleport, Hurricanrana, teleport. I planted a grenade inside of its rib cage, teleport back away.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that'd
But
be
it allows for the development of the story and to develop, like, if you were to read a battle like some of the ones we've gone through and it would be a book, that's not one chapter. There are multiple chapters with cliffhangers and stopgaps. And when
Listen.
each of us goes in and describes what we're doing, and then the others are going, well, here what we're doing, it's almost as if we're writing the dialogue. In fact, I look at my notes and I'm like, this isn't very difficult to turn these notes into a full-fledged story.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the idea.
collaborative fan fiction.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But you're right. That's what Shadows to me is much more that. I know D&D started as that, but D&D has somehow moved away, and it's very systematic and in a box now. I think it's lost some of the creativity that Shadows in many ways has as a very strong aspect to.
yeah, it's the thing about that is it's the mechanical orientation, and that is the problem. It's mechanical
Dale.
orientation. You have a game to support the mechanics, not the other way around, which is why I make, like, whenever I'm building the stuff
Oh.
up, I'm going like, do these mechanics support the story? Do they support the characters? Do they support the GM to enable everyone? It should be a matter of enabling, not a matter of restriction.
That is.
Now I have a question.
What
Is
is
that
D&D?
written-
It's the D20 system.
Mhm.
You roll a D20 and add something on top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is the synergy system.
Yeah.
Is this concept that you just said, D, is this recorded anywhere as, like, I see it almost like not as a warning, but like there's a page that's all that is written on that page is this is the idea that you must take into this
I
as
don't-
sort of a grounding foundation.
I would say that I don't have anything written out as a basic, because it's kind of like you're talking about like an introduction to,
Well, it's the Welcome to Shadows page.
yeah, it's like that. Just more oriented towards I'm talking to you as the player, as the writer of this stuff. It's a matter of, yeah, this is supposed to enable you or to enable the imagination. Where, like I said, it's the inverse of a lot of different systems where the system itself is meant as a form of restriction. The idea is don't let your players get away with it. Somehow or another, it always kind of winds up going in that direction. I'm basically going like, I'm building this so that the mechanics act like stairs, so you can climb all the way up to the top. And I'm basically going like, bring it, bitch. Let's see what you can do. And that's
No, but that you've done a great job of that. Of you want to go crazy, what you do, and I think this is really well, and Scott does this well as well, and I've played with others who can do this. Is you let us run on these tangents, but you equal us in whatever we're doing. It's not like we're outsmarting you. It's like, I'm going to try and outsmart you. You just come back and go, well, hey, you tried that, but you're going to be restricted by this, and this is how it's going to screw you over.
yeah. Well, and
You
like,
win when we all win.
Yeah, well, and like
Yeah.
and that's the other thing too, is that the principal idea of a GM is not to antagonize against the players. It's not, like I said, it's a cooperative effort. I'm standing in the
Mhm.
background going like, what are you guys gonna do, and how is this gonna play out? How can we make this more entertaining? Because it's like I'm just as entertained as you guys are in the playing seat.
Well, it's storyteller and referee.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you
Oh,
whenever
it
there's whatever, and it's like whenever I'm dealing with like the consequence of a situation, that's what I'm here for. I am not there to tell you that your character is wrong or anything else like that. If you're behaving out of character and using meta knowledge, that's a different story. But like if your character is behaving as they would, natural consequence leads the way. I don't have to worry about it.
Oh,
But
you
that's
know what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no. Go after you, Ken.
I feel like just based on the way you've been building up this world, we should actually introduce meta knowledge as a actual mechanic in the game. And what I mean by that is that the gods of the world, if you interfere, like you, the player character, interfere in some way by having your character try to do something that they shouldn't know about, that they get punished for it. Like the DM actually has a tool that's like, no. Not just saying no outside of the world, but in the world they get punished.
I could see that as
That would
almost
be-
being like a joke, because that's one of those things where it's like, this is kind of what every DM sort of feels like at some time or another. But like I make it a habit never to directly punish my players, or their characters. If they use out of character knowledge, it's kind of like it just kind of goes bleep, like they get deleted, in the sense that we're back at a point where that never happened, or it's like, oh, well, that wouldn't be said, so we're just going to move ahead. Like
Yeah. But I mean, I see people who take out of game knowledge and they use it one of two ways. They either use it to help advance the storyline, like I'm going to play ignorantly into this trap that I know is a trap, or they use it to almost cheat the game,
Right.
which is stupid because in the end you end up just
You cheat
cheating.
yourself.
You cheat the experience.
yeah.
Bill,
Okay, so
that's awesome. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
yeah, I lost everything. I'm hanging on by a thread, Ken. Gone.
Just deleted everything.
Everything is out.
Uh,
Okay. I love the changes that you've been making on the equipment. I mean, as a more or less mundane character,
Mm-hmm.
Barrack, until very recently, it's point and shoot, right? And so the only way for me to become more powerful is eventually I'm going to be shooting, oh, my bullet does 500 damage. That makes no sense, right? These are, active warheads that I'm firing out of a gun. They're that doesn't
just wait for you to be able
actually.
to curve the bullets. Just
Well, it's I've got the Roger Rabbit bullets.
yeah.
They hit the target and then start burrowing in. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No,
I
there
like
are-
when it
there-
changes.
Yeah, it should make feasibility and achievability possible for everything else while reducing. I think, what was it, when you were looking at some of those ideas, somewhere in there I wrote reducing crazy math. That was,
Yeah.
I said something along those lines where it's I need the arithmetic to calm the fuck down, because it's too much.
Well, you told me the
something.
other day that it should be a threat when you whip out the calculator,
Yes.
not a
Yep.
not a standard.
Yeah, it shouldn't be
Right.
that this is what we're expecting. It's time to play Pokemon. It's we have to have something that seems like an easily accessible understanding of, oh shit, this could be bad. And it has to be kind of an immediate recognition. And like it or not, in the realm of 100, when it comes to anything, people can vaguely understand 100. They can kind of get that. You push past that point, for most people, it's they really can't put together how much 200 really is, or 1,000.
Yeah.
It's
It's the base 10 to the base 100 idea that you're playing with, and it plays to the idea that if all we do is play to that, and I think many gamers like this, I want the most powerful motherfucker out there who's just gonna blast everything. But you eventually get that character, and I'm sure we've all played it in games. You get to that character, the game ceases to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And by keeping these caps of reality, you can develop the depth of your character. and you can develop the reputation of your character, but you never make your character to a level where they are bigger than the game itself.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing worse than having a character who's reached the end of his line because there's no other problems to solve. You gotta have
I'll
problems to
surrender
solve.
until there's no one left to surrender to.
Right.
Scott, where's your massive? I saw your dump, like the CRB dump for Scott. But where did you put in that massive thing that you put out, the outline of the CRB?
That's in the Ken's Gaming Notebook under Scott Shadow's CRB Table of Contents.
Got it. I found it. Probably should consolidate that into keeping in the synergy system. We shouldn't have to jump notebooks to get to this data.
Well, I was
This is
homeless
awesome.
for a little bit, so then you gave me a place to stay in OneNote.
That's so funny that you happen to start using OneNote and then you got a job where like that needed to be something you need to know about.
I have to scroll my sections now. Like sections, not pages, sections.
You know you can do
You can
subsections, right? Or subpages
well,
too. You can do
yeah.
section groups.
We're gonna get there pretty soon. I've only been there for 1 month.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Well, and as a side point, the momentum in me, unless hit by a truck, this is going to continue to be going at this pace.
Yeah.
It's going to be pushing.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I'm writing notes of what we're talking about. One of the big takeaways is that armor can break.
Yep.
That's a huge change to our system right now. So
Yeah.
far, it's just been you take the bullets and we're good to go.
Yeah.
Well, that to give an argument for that does allow for the ability to not have to be like, oh, I gotta go repair my armor. Oh, I gotta repair my armor. But it does allow for, in this new system, sort of the conversation of what are you gonna do with your armor? Like it's that
should find
bathrobe is
someone
looking a little.
Yeah. Well, so far, I mean, our group has been bankrolled by Douglas, but we
Right.
should have avenues of spending our money that's
Yes.
not just buying weapons and armor. You should be buying maintenance and stuff like that. So sorry, my question is, can weapons break?
Well, yeah, they can. That's actually part of the system for luckily Barrick is probably the only one that's ever actually seen multiple jams. And
Yeah.
and I keep rolling to see what happens, and he just gets jams, which is typical. But yes, weapons can break. You can go too far and overdo it. If you botch on a roll, you can snap your melee weapon in half. The only time that really doesn't necessarily come into play is when you're dealing with the really heavy-ended, like near indestructible type items. When you get up there, then you
yeah, like the
lightsaber
gauntlets.
Bill just got.
Riv's gauntlets are pretty indestructible.
yes, yeah, they have to be. They're exotech technically.
They're magical in nature.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're ancient
I
exotech.
originally, when I built my character, I had put in equipment, like I had gone shopping for bedroll and like cigarettes and like whatever. I had gone through and like added all those things in, and then 2 sessions in and we're like living in the X mansion, and I'm like, oh, never mind, I don't need any of that stuff.
Question for you, D.
Yeah.
So I want to write down some of these notes about weapons breaking.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of said 2 different things, and I want to hit on both of them. The first one is with ranged weapons or weapons that are mechanical in nature. The way they break down is via botch rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And how is there any other ways that you can break down a weapon?
So in this case,
Mechanical weapon,
mechanical.
not melee. Just think
Yeah,
mechanical
well, you
weapon.
could basically smack the weapon, disarm somebody. You can literally target a weapon and bust it that way. Mainly, it's kind of like the whole sniper who shoots the guy's gun, so he can't do anything with it.
Okay. And then melee weapons, are you planning on having, and I haven't looked at your weapons, so you might probably have an answer to this, but are weapons going to have a resilience as well? And like, when I use, let's say I have a katana, so let me finish my thought.
Yeah.
Let's say I use a katana and I slash Bill, who's wearing his black armor. I mean, yes, I might hurt him, but I'm also going to hurt my blade because it's going to like scrape across that. And if I continue to do it, I could probably break my blade.
Or you dull it.
Or dull it, yeah.
Does the tree not also harm the axe?
Well, and this is going back to what you were saying, Scott, in Breath of the Wild. You'll be, whacking away at someone and suddenly
you
your
can't
sword will
repair
break.
in that game.
Well, in that game, you can't repair, but
Yeah.
I think that's another dynamic is that when you go into a fight, if you're kitted out with like a lightsaber that is going to be resilient as fuck, and it literally doesn't take damage when it's hurting things, but a katana versus a piece of plate mail,
Right.
it will damage it, and eventually, like you just said, Drew, it will dull the blade. But if I continue to whack you with it, I could ruin that blade. It's unrepairable.
So
Yeah, but
what?
but I have a simple solution to this.
Sweet.
So we're sitting around the table. What are you doing? Barrett's
Sharpening.
cleaning his gun.
Yeah.
Doing
Like-
DCI,
like-
right?
I'm sharpening my sword as we sit there talking, and it just becomes a simple dialogue line that adds in, and you're like, oh, all right, well,
But if they
You
didn't do
sit there-
that, then your resistance
So-
is
yeah, and,
down.
and then if you don't
Well,
do that, and it's
that's
after
where
a
we
while, you
can
haven't
use
mentioned
some of
it.
these skills.
Yes.
Right. So
That's it.
in looking at some of the specifically some of the like tech skills that
Mhm.
we just have not used, that can be an opportunity to do armor repair, things
Yep.
like
But
that.
you could also use those as a way as the GM could just come in and say, "Hey guys, I need you to all roll tech rolls right now. What are we rolling for? We're checking to see if you've actually had the brains to maintain your equipment.
Right.
Like you could be going into a battle and just as a way not to mess with the group, but it's like, hey, did you guys ever think to maintain your stuff? And it almost becomes like a list of things, like a checklist of, hey, you could set up like 10 items and you roll, and if you roll a 7, it's, hey, have them roll this and see if they've maintained their armor.
That's like a downtime activities.
Yeah, it's like a downtime, but almost like, I don't want to say a downtime, but like a downtime disadvantages opportunity that could show up to you. Because if you have broken down, worn out weapons, worn out armor, that's a disadvantage in a battle. And you could easily set up a list of like, here's 10 things that could happen, and maybe 5 are positive, or however you wish to divide it. And that would allow for not to get too bogged down with, well, to just sharpen your weapon jet, it just becomes a possible option.
Right. So to really answer your question, Ken, fully and completely, is there ways? Yes. Most of them I usually use. I choose to do the roleplay element of breaking a weapon, like a botch or things like that, because it makes the game gritty and cinematic at the same time without knocking in another die roll or check. So, like I said, but here are the factors that really truly affect any particular weapon: maintenance, quality, and luck. Those are the things that always play into any particular weapon, period. It is the quality of the weapon first, because that is how it is built, how it is made. If you've got a crap sword, it's going to break. Same thing with a crap gun. It's going to jam, or it's going to require excessive cleaning because you just can't keep it together. You know what I mean? So quality first. And then you have the maintenance, which is the second part, which is, do you keep your weapons clean? Do you keep them free from rust? Are you managing them all the time? Like how much do you actually love and care for the actual weapon that you have? And that goes for all weapons. It doesn't matter what it is. Bladed, period. Maintenance matters. And that helps bolster the quality. It's why certain things could last years and never break. Even despite the fact that, like you take swordsmen in the medieval ages, they were bashing that crap on, it would happen all the time where they would break it, but there were good quality weapons that wouldn't. They would get dull, but they wouldn't break. And it's one of those things where it's like they have to be durable,
Clean your
period.
blade and
Yeah.
So let's go through a quick exercise here, D, and you could just rapid fire question answer.
Yeah.
So are we saying that weapons will in this new system, like armor, will have a resilience that will affect their performance,
I
or
don't-
is it more of a?
I don't know that I'm going to put a resilience in for the weaponry. I think what I will do is I will rely on more or less the roleplay of maintenance and quality. I think quality will be the biggest thing. If I were to do anything else, I would say I could apply quality and more or less kind of give you a thought process, which is like, hey, this is a high quality weapon that's rated as durable or highly durable or something. I can't remember what it was for Cyberpunk 2020, but yeah, reliability is what they called it. But it's quality. It's weapon quality. How reliable is it? How is it good quality or not? But you could take a quality number and go, or a quality dictum, and say this is a high quality. It's kind of like masterworking weapons in D&D. The same principle applies here. You could say you have a really high quality weapon, which means that you can trash on it a lot, and it will still function pretty okay. Kind of like a Glock, actually. That thing you could pretty much run over with a truck, and it would still
U.S.
fire.
Marshals. Underwater, in the sand, still going.
Yup.
Get an AK-47.
When I just threw together that big, empty table of weapons and stuff like that, I had cost, right? Cheap, average, expensive, priceless, and then availability, common, uncommon, rare, black market, exotic. Could easily kind of factor in that, and we know what these are, right? The homemade shiv, right? That's like a shard of metal that you found and like wrapped in tape is going to be very different from the high-end Miltech weapon,
right?
Even though they're both a knife and do 7 damage,
similar
So-
damage to each other, right? Yeah.
So to recap what you said, D, weapon breaking will be based on weapon stats, not how it's used. What I mean by that is that armor breaking happens based on your a foe doing damage to you. Weapons can break in combat based on actions from either the player or the foe. In the examples of like Barrack botching rolls multiple times and the gun just breaks because of that, or maybe the player or maybe the foe attacks the weapon itself, and because of that target, maybe it breaks.
Right.
Stuff like that. So there's no number we're going to worry about, which is fine. I just recapping what you just said.
Clarification on this. I know we have compound exploding dice for 10s. Do we have a similar model for epic fails and hitting those ones? Like you botch and you keep botching ones and over. I know Scott has done this a few times, and I've done it a few times. Like, do those like compoundly screw your life more?
Well,
we don't do exploding ones right now.
Yeah, we don't do it now. But I mean, I could do that.
Every time I come up and I'm rolling ones, there has to be like something in the story to account for. You're throwing a lot of bad rolls out tonight, and what that does to you.
Right. Well, in this case, like more often than not, so I have to be very careful with like the botch portion of it. Go too hard, like more or less. I'm kind of thinking it's like if you want to go do a hard mode where botches explode. Yikes. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, it could be really funny whenever like the so-called super enemy you've been fighting falls into a manhole and breaks his neck because he botched 3 to 4 times in an exploding die roll. That's hilarious. But I think that it would be extremely frustrating if you were playing as a character and then suddenly you just go like, I didn't realize they were putting landmines in Walmart. Like, I don't know how to make that explainable. But it's something that goes along those lines. It could be one of those kinds of, if you wanted to try an alternate form of play where it's like basically extreme fail, then you could have that, but I don't know that I would want to have that as the standard part of the game. Because having the massive successes is extremely uplifting and also dangerous, because that means that your enemy can still do the same thing with the exploding dice. So there is still this...
there's a balance.
Yes, there's a polar element here that balances itself out. Like, I don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? You guys get massive bonuses whenever you get like those exploding 10s, but so does the enemy. So it puts you guys on even playing fields. What's weird is that if you go into exploding failures, it gets crazy. Like really ludicrous. You're just sitting there going like, well, I guess fate hates me today. Like, whew.
Your character panicked and had a heart attack.
Right? It's just like...
That's what was that Disco Elysium?
Yeah.
Yeah. That game's amazing.
I kicked the furnace. You broke your toe. You had a heart attack. You're dead. The kid teased you to death.
Yep.
Right.
I got killed because that damn kid teased me, and my ego couldn't take it, and I like suicided or whatever because some 8-year-old like yelled at me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things. So like, but yeah, that's kind of the idea behind all of the like the weapons breaking, the stuff like that. It's like I'm more than happy to throw in a weapon quality and basically give that have that act as a juxtaposition to, if you botch, the weapon's quality could be like a dictate to the weapon snaps or it backfires or there's something else like that, because if weapon quality is crappy enough, your chances of doing something harmful to yourself go up.
Yeah, like I could see definitely, it's one of the reasons I rarely roll luck to save ones with Barrack, is because, like, what am I going to do? Catch the bullet, reload it, and fire again? Like, it doesn't make sense too much.
God, I love the luck system. I love it so much.
But, I like the idea of, like, if a gun, fails while it's in your hand, it could cause damage to your hand, right?
Backfire,
depending on what you're doing with it.
I personally like the idea that Barrack is just an old grizzled veteran, and when he fails things, he just realizes, it's just a Tuesday.
I mean, that is part. Like, I purposely don't spend my luck when I'm firing 12 shots and 3 of them miss, because I'm like, that's just it.
Yeah, see, whereas I've always played the luck aspect of, like, Ivar is pissed, and this is him actually trying to focus.
Yeah. And that's gotta love luck. It basically diversifies and makes everything dynamic. How you use your luck makes the character operate in very specific ways.
Mm-hmm.
Hey D, have you considered? This is a tangent, so sorry, but still talking about armor and weapons. Have you considered weapon and armor requirements to use those things? And what I mean by that is that certain things are obvious, like a shirt. You don't have to have a license. Remember in fucking Final Fantasy 12, you had to have a license to put on a hat. We don't have to. Yeah, to actually wear specific armor, you had to actually like go to the grid and like buy that specific license for it.
Wow.
So if you have a tunic, you could put that on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at a piece of power armor, just getting into it might not be enough to turn it on. And if you're looking at like the most exotic or exotech, like think of the weapon from Fifth Element, his favorite weapon, that giant thing.
Yep.
Like you press the wrong button, you just set off the flamethrower. So you actually have to have some tech knowledge to know how to use this. Have you considered like?
So power armor, I was actually considering the possibility of actually using so I would use skills as the means of dictating, like, can you use the weapon or not. It's one of those things where it's like, obviously you have the basic versions which hit between 1 and 4, and then you have advanced versions which hit between 5 and like 8, and then you have 9 and 10, which is kind of like master class of that particular skill. You could use the rank as its own formation there. And it's like, power armor? Yeah, that should require a little bit of help. Because you've got a whole HUD UI, various systems. Yeah, not to mention the fact you've got to know the power systems, when it's going to shut down, all that other shit.
Skills are actually useful. I love
Like,
that.
I couldn't just hop into the Mark V armor and become Iron Man, right?
Right. You have to know how it works, because you wouldn't know any of it. It'd be like Spider-Man when he's trying to get used to his suit and he keeps going into killer mode. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we talked about is like possible strength requirements, like bod requirements to use certain weapons, like a heavy weapon. Could someone with a bod of 2 pick up the huge, two-handed minigun?
Right.
And it's like,
There's always the possibility you do it once and then you hurt your back.
well, I'm thinking like Ivar versus Barrack. Like, they're gonna handle a large weapon very differently, even if they had the same skills.
But here's the question, D. In your experience, do you get people who abuse things like that? Or do they kind of play their character? Because, like, I would never play Ivar trying to lift up something that I'm like, Ivar would not fucking lift that up.
Well, so it depends on your demographic. If you're going to go with the super young, more naive type players, you're dealing with somebody who's probably going to assume or not realize that a minigun weighs a crap ton. And if you're going to be playing somebody with the age disadvantage and you're a child and you try to pick up a minigun, I wouldn't be like, okay, well, you can't pick it up. I wouldn't say that. It's like, you pick it up, but you're doing this number because you have no way to control that sucker.
You're not going to be able to Z pattern.
Yeah, you can't control that at all.
I mean, when Barrack ripped the turret off the wall and then used that as his weapon, like,
Yeah, he had
So-
all the backup to handle it. His gun kata,
Yeah.
the sheer strength of his body, everything was in his
Yeah.
favor.
So
But,
just
like,
to interject here,
very
Scott,
different.
what you're talking about, the reason I want to talk about like skills to use or actually stat checks is that when you said something about damage is based on the level of the campaign. Personally, I think to keep things simple, and D, you can correct me on this
Sure.
if you think differently, but I think weapons should have static power. You know, a katana that you're holding as a street level versus a god level character should be the same. Now, the skills that you inherit as a god level character can make you use that katana much better, or you can pick up the katana 5000 that has all this tech stuff because you have the skills to be able to wield that awesome thing.
So in a sense, it's the you give me a knife in the kitchen, I can cut things, but you give it to like Anthony Bourdain, and he's chopping shit and like holding a conversation while drinking things with two hands.
Yeah, skills make it matter.
Long
And
kiss, good night. Chop, 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 chop. Throw.
because it worries
So-
me when I saw your thing here that campaign power would dictate the power of a weapon. Because I feel like if you
What
ever
are you
put out a
referring
book,
to?
I'm talking to the chat in the OOC chat.
Oh yeah, it was a idea I had to determine the damage
Oh,
class of a weapon. It was a previous idea about how do we determine how much damage, because a lot of the time I'm like, D, how much does this gun do? And he's like, 30.
yeah,
Right? And,
that
like,
that
we
was
get to
the
a
other
point where
thing.
it becomes completely untenable. And
Yeah.
so I thought, what if there's a way we could say
So
that there was all these different modifiers to determine what a weapon does. So melee, a common, low-tech, cheap melee weapon, like a regular kitchen knife, is going to be like bottom end of the barrel. But like the Exotech beam weapon is going to be priceless, high-tech, exotic thing. And so it has all these other things on it. And so I thought, campaign power level, could that be a factor in determining a
Right.
weapon strength?
So the way that I fixed that problem there, Ken, in particular, is that the weapon itself literally does have a fixed damage. The weapon itself. That's
Yeah.
because the weapon means one factor. The second
Yeah.
factor is the person who carries it. If it's a handheld or any kind of melee weapon, you're adding the power of the strike to that weapon's own fixed damage. And yours is like I said, when you're controlling your weapon strength on those points, if you're striking to kill, it's going to be at a certain power. It's always going to be at a certain power because you got to cut through tissue, bone, all that stuff, or smash through it. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It always requires a certain degree of effort that kind of averages out, even if you're going a little high, a little low on occasion. So you've got the weapon itself and the damage it could do if you just dropped it onto something. Like that's the damage it can do by itself whenever you just let gravity do the work. And then you have the power of the person who carries it or the skill of the person who shoots it, whatever. That plays its factor in there too. And that's one of those things where it's like, I was kind of like, okay, so you have to make sure that you keep that in mind. But yeah, that's how a weapon damage is compiled, is that you're basically going, there's the weapon itself, there's the factor or the person that's employing it, either by skill or by physical prowess. And, and what's funny is that physical prowess doesn't completely answer that question for melee weapons. Like, melee weapons in real life are absolutely more devastating than gunshot. Like, there is a 30% chance of death when you're shot. There's a 70% chance of death when you're stabbed. The sheer degree of difference between the two different types of weapons is enormous. Why? Because the weapons that you use that are by hand, way more kinetic force, far more tissue damage. There's just so much more going on. So melee weapons and handhelds are just devastating. I do have one minor tangent question. What is everybody's favorite beam weapon by name? I'm just curious because I have my own. I went a little ham on that one because I could literally make it up all by myself without having to reference anything else.
Favorite beam weapon?
Yeah. There's not many. It's just a few, but they're all fun.
I like Travis touchdowns beam weapon.
Oh, yeah, that's fun. I like the Marvel vs. Capcom Iron Man. That's the one that I always try to find the perfect gift for.
It's a good one.
I know. I'm thinking like I've got all these IP for Barrack. I'm like, when do I just like open my chest and like power source out to Gino style?
When I think beam weapon, I always think of like lightsaber, but you're thinking like
Beam.
things that
A
shoot out
ranged.
beams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's in the list of weapons there in my weapons list. I just have a list of beam weapons. I was just curious if you guys had any names
Oh,
that
I
stuck
don't
out.
see your list.
What?
It's under weapons list.
Yeah, it's under it's
equipment
weapons
notes,
list.
weapon list.
Yeah, and then it's underneath the beam because, like I said, I went by skill.
Yeah, I'm looking
I
through it.
don't see. I just see.
I
So-
see there's beams. So there's the Blast Dragon spin rifle, Ethos plasma ejector, fire dart,
What am I?
HD spark driver. Are you in equipment notes under weapons list?
Yeah, I just see melee, archery, beam, handgun, rifles, martial arts,
Beam.
SMG, heavy,
Yeah, beam right there. You just passed. You
Yeah,
just said beam.
I just see the word beam.
Yeah,
There's
that's
stuff there.
yeah.
Are you looking at this in your OneNote or on OneNote online?
In my OneNote.
You might not be synced.
I would say that's probably pretty close.
Well, what the hell? I just see this.
Yeah. No, there's so much more there. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. There's a ton of shit here.
Found it.
Guys!
This is what I see.
You've been
Under
having
beams.
this whole fancy conversation without me. Oh yeah, Smart Link. Okay, so that's one of the things, Ken, that you're saying about requirements. I was trying to think of what it's called. I love the idea of having like the digital fingerprint. You know, that this handgun only works for me or whatever, palm printed, stuff like that, so that you can't just like if I get disarmed, someone can't just pick up my gun and start shooting with it.
I don't.
How do I
I
resync
actually don't
this?
know what. I don't know. Oh, if you want to try it, if you need to sync again, click the file on the top left, and then there's a
Sync
view
all
sync
notebooks.
status.
There
Yeah,
we go.
there you go. Get that shit in there. Bill, how you doing over there?
Hey, you
trying
got
this
the
out?
ducks in there.
Oh, I'm fine.
Fuck ducks.
You've just been kind of waiting back there
I
to
couldn't
drop
help
a
it.
ball.
Holy
Just
crap,
gonna
there
mic
we
drop
go.
and leave.
Okay, what do I like?
No, I've been listening to the whole thing. I'm like, nope, that works.
Oh,
Mm,
HD
that,
Spark
that
Driver.
works.
HD Spark Driver. That's what
yeah,
I want.
that works too. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here. 'Cause, that worked too. Like it makes sense to me. So
When it says accuracy 1,
That means that that's in addition to your normal
that's a
like
plus
skill.
1 to
Yeah,
your roll.
yeah, because
Okay.
the weapon quality allows you to be able to fire more accurately. It's just a better design.
Quick
Damn.
side note.
No wonder, Ken, you're like, Scott, what is this crazy list that you just shared? It doesn't line up with anything that we're seeing on the OneNote. Well, that's because I've been synced 12 hours ago.
On a quick side note, have any of you watched on Disney Plus yet the Get Back, the Beatles documentary?
No.
No, I wasn't sure if it was out yet.
Yeah, it came out over Thanksgiving. I would highly encourage you to watch it for the creative aspect. To watch how the Beatles just sat down and would create songs and change them up is what I'm seeing is a lot of the parallels of what we're doing right here. Is this, you're throwing ideas out there, and it's often when you get the idea flushed out, it ends up being this really simple and succinct idea. And I think D, you've gotten onto this before, and it's finding that right pattern that would make it so that somebody could read and be like, oh my god, this is so simplistic. Why didn't somebody ever think of this before? And then they play it, and you're like, whoa, this is way more complex and so simply explained. It's elegant. It's like a Ferrari.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's definitely the whole mission point of it. And like I said, I think that the system itself will probably confuse certain people because it goes in the reverse direction You know what I mean? Because that's true. The whole idea tossing and the rest of that, because the whole premise behind this game is like, here's the base foundation, because I wanted to make that concretized so that people could stand on it and then just go wee with wherever they wanted to go after that.
Well, but I'll agree with you. When I first came into this world, I was very, very confused. And I still recall the first night when you were explaining to me, sitting there going, and in my mind, I was like, okay, this is amazing, but I can't wrap my head around it, which made me more interested in it. And as I've come to play the game, the simplicity with the complexity is just brilliantly put together. And I do think you're on to a very, very powerful game, especially if you can get it out there and get it to people.
Oh, I'm going to. That's the plan, because this is the, these moments right here, this is the before I was famous time. But that goes for everybody. Like, I just know I'm going to get it out there. I want people to be able to, like, completely enjoy this whole thing. And the best part is that while the focus, theme, and general principle of the game is cyberpunk at its base, I want this to be able to incorporate any genre that you want to jump at, and more or less conform to that, because the system itself needs to be not vague. Like, it doesn't need to be vague in order to encompass that. It just needs to be balanced.
Well, what you're doing is you're developing guiding principles, and these guiding principles are what allow you then to create the framework for whatever you want. It's a very classical way of designing things that people don't do often anymore. But if you pull it off, it creates whole worlds.
Well, and yeah, I mean, like, you look at something as systems like GURPS, for instance. Like, so many systems have tried again and again and again, and I know some of them have been fairly successful. There's been a few that haven't. Like, I've got a role-playing book in my closet right now that was like ultimate role-playing game, whatever it is. I haven't seen it anywhere. I don't hear about it. I don't see it online.
Is there any game that any of us can think of that the playing mechanics, the structure, fits into what Shadows does?
This piecemeals everything that I think works and excludes everything that I think doesn't. So far, it seems to be a consensus that these are the things that do work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it's probably going to look very different from most anything.
Good, because that means it's original.
Well, darn close to it, yeah.
Or at least
Yeah,
taking
good.
enough of other things to make it your own, which
Right.
is, I think, what you've been doing.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it the best kind of derivative, It feels new, because there's not really much of an original idea out there, but this will come pretty close, I think. I don't know, like, kind of like what Scott's saying, like, these are the gold stars that I try to find, which is like, yeah, we were playing this many hours of combat, and this was not part of it. Oh, like, it wasn't that.
Yeah. That's good. It's good stuff. I'm glad that your inspiration, that the lightning bolt, hit you.
Just not to get too spiritual, just a point of acceptance. I'm a writer. That's it. That was literally the switch, and then all of a sudden, I've gone in that direction. I haven't
Open
touched...
yourself up to the world, and
Well, I mean, like, I haven't. This is what's strange, is that this is week 4 of hitting it this hard, and like, the part that I'm excited about is going to be the near, or like towards the end of this particular conversation. It's probably going to come up right now, actually. Is that the freaking character sheet is going to undergo some serious changes. Like, big changes, because that table that was body and all these different elements that were, that's gone.
Yeah.
That is disappearing. I want that to be out of here. There is so much crap that goes in with that, and I'm going like, it doesn't have. What I liked about it was the fact that it kind of had a little bit of a non-linear growth spectrum to it, but that non-linear growth made it very difficult for me to remember. Okay, this person's got this much body. How much?
Remember, we had that long conversation.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, at BOD 26, you made it go up by 3 instead of by 2. Is that an inconsistency that you planned? And you're like, what?
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't even my thing. That was the bit. That's what
Right.
came into it. That was baked in, and I was like, I've always kind of been like, I want to keep it because I just can't think of anything else better right now because I just don't want to make it too static. But at the same time, I'm kind of going like, okay, honestly, like whenever I drag it down, body, the amount of damage output you can do, body. You know, like if you want to make something scary, just say the body is the damage flat by its or the base. You just say that's base damage at the, close quarters combat level of things. A werewolf who goes, pff, it's going to just do it, and their body is all there. That's part of their stuff. Like the fact that they can do 20-something points of damage with a single punch. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. You know what I mean? Like they're a supernatural being that can kill a human in one blow. Yeah. Like, and that's why you want to be wearing armor and stuff like that. This world is layered in such a way that you shouldn't be encountering, just like anything else really, you shouldn't be encountering these higher level beings because they're going to be focused upward. That's the way that Shadows really works, is that if you're street level, you're looking up, and trying to get to the next level of power means you face the interim bridge to get there, which usually is costly, risky, dangerous. It's got all this stuff going on, and then when you finally get there, you've got a reason to be there, and you can handle your stuff a hell of a lot better than somebody who hasn't done it. And so, the progression moves like that. And, it's just like, so yeah, body. Body is your damage base when you're dealing with the melee and hand-to-hand. Simple frickin' answer. And it just cuts out this gigantic table of nonsense. And I honestly think it supports the experience completely fine.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how much we've ever used the how fast, how far do you run, jump, etc.
I want to complete a thought that I've been having with Scott. When it comes to, I feel like we could borrow from another world, because he gave me the idea when he put that table down earlier. But I think that are you planning with weapons to actually have rarity levels on them, or is it just going to be? Because I imagine that pretty much everything that you can get at a street level is common, and the uncommon stuff is going to be the the kind of modded stuff. The rare stuff is going to be the things that are even better than that. And then I think you had like black market as a rarity level.
Yeah, exotic, black market, the stuff that
we've already come up with exotic as exotech.
Yeah,
that's its
totally.
Yep.
The idea with black market being the
Puns.
stuff that's illegal,
right,
or that is experimental.
I feel like at that level, I call it legendary, which that comes from Destiny. But whatever rarity level, I think at that level those weapons start to have names. Like they're not just a Glock with like a bunch of letters at the end. It's like this is Pavlov's fucking gun.
Chekhov's gun, maybe.
Pavlov's fucking gun.
I mean, that could be a thing.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
And then, and I think that there could actually be one level above that D has done with us a few times, which is unique. Because legendary means you can have several of them that are like, that guy's special weapons. And exotech is even higher than that, which is like, you add some magic imbued into it. You got, it's fancy. And then there's unique, which is like, there's only one of those. And if you happen to get one of those, it's one of the most powerful weapons in the game.
Right. It should be something that's kind of near balance changing almost, yeah.
Yeah, and if you encounter a unique weapon, if you encounter someone who has a unique weapon, they are going to fuck you up, most likely.
Well, so
I like the idea of quality, though. Just to complete this thought, it sounds like what you've done, or with the quality and rarity combined, you can actually have it so that a single weapon can have 4 levels within its rarity bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have a Glock that's common. It could be a cheap Glock. It could be an average one. It can be expensive, or it could be priceless. those 4 things make it so that it does more damage or has better stats per thing. So that pretty much for you, D, you make 1 weapon, you just made 4 weapons.
Right.
It helps with your output, so to speak. You've already done a lot of output, but I'm just trying to think how we can help.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to originally build, is just let's get all the different permutations. Now you're not going to have a common price list, right? An exotic cheap, but a cheap exotech.
Yeah, I feel like after rare, it can't be, the quality doesn't matter anymore.
Well, rare.
Right.
So when you're talking about rare, it's because when we refer to rare, we're talking about this is something that is rare because of its quality. So they have to coincide. Like you hit rare, quality great. Like
Yeah, I had common cheap, common average, uncommon average, rare expensive, black market expensive, exotic price lists, just as like my combinations. And from just that, I created 10 weapons for each category, or placeholders for 10 weapons for each category. Because do you really need 4 different bats that are common, right? Like those you don't need all those. But now a single gun that is, a common average gun, you could have 10 different of those because they're going to have.
Hold on here.
different rates of fire
There's a big
like
difference
that.
between an aluminum bat and a Louisville Slugger,
Absolutely.
and they are
That's
both
named. That's
common,
important.
Yeah,
but they do 2 different things.
that is absolutely true. Which is why you have, the uncommon, the rare, etc. bat, but you don't need
But
4
both of them.
common cheap baseball bats. Right, you don't need to differentiate between 4 different common
No.
cheap baseball bats.
But I think you just need to go, hey, you got bats, and they can be whatever kind of bat you want. And just know you can call them whatever the hell you want. This is how much damage they do.
Well, bat is like, we're getting crazy on the bat thing, but like bat is a melee weapon, right? So you could have a bat, you could have a nightstick, you could have a mercury-filled nightstick, you could have, like.
it's a matter of distinguishing, saying you've got
So it's
2
a
people
melee
with
weapon.
2 of the same weapon, but there's a quality difference between the 2. They may look the
Right.
same, but the quality, the integral foundation of the weapons is different. Meaning, guy A may be doing better than guy B because his quality's up. Yes, yeah,
That's
it's
something to discuss.
yeah.
And so fencing is gone. Those
Yeah,
are all under
That's,
melee.
yeah, I'm getting rid of fencing, and I'm going to slap that into martial arts. So
Okay.
it's going to be counted as a
So-
I
martial
called
art.
it a martial weapon. I called it
Like-
a martial weapon in my weapon types.
Like, are we saying swords are under martial arts?
Yeah, we're going to say certain swords are going to be under martial arts. Some of them are basically like axes with long blades. If you're if you're wanting to go at it, I mean, like
Right.
some of them are just hacky slashy, but you want to take
And how much are we going to see those in Night City? Right, like
right. Well, it depends on what power level. Because to be perfectly honest, like this is kind of something that's been going around in my head. When you have magic like this, right, it's not going to blend very well with the typical technology. The 2 of them are sort of juxtaposed because you add all that extra energy from magic and try to intercircuit that into something that already has a lot of power flowing through it from the natural world. Those 2 things can cause a short, and they kind of short each other out, right?
Dresden issues.
Yeah,
where
it
you
kind of
stick
does.
to
You
this
have to
carriage gun.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about what you're doing. So yeah, is there a possibility that you could create a fully powered mech suit that has enchantments on it? Yes, but those enchantments are going to be basic. Because you've already incorporated so much technology in this one thing, you're not going to get a lot of the juice going the other way. On the other hand,
We need slotted armor like Diablo.
but I've been kind of working on that kind of idea. I've been calling them mod slots,
You can have one magic or one tech slot.
yeah,
gem
it's
pockets.
But when it comes to magic, it's like, okay, you take a low-tech object, which doesn't have all that extra crap in it, and you can really funnel the power of ether into that particular soon-to-be device at that point, because it becomes one. When you start giving it that ability to behave differently than just a standard garden variety weapon or garden variety item, it's becoming a piece of technology into itself, just on the other side. You know, mysticism and magic, that's
Yeah.
technology of a different sort. They're just two interesting sides of the same problem-solving ability. So, you know, they just don't... You can't meet them in the middle too much because you're already incorporating that. It's like two objects cannot incorporate the same space. So magic and technology kind of encounter that problem. But you take your garden variety basic weapon, like a sword or whatever, you can imbue the hell out of that thing. Why? Because it's pretty much just a straight-up metal and material and whatever flaws it has with nothing else extra. But that's also like, you know, if you're in a mech suit, why have a sword? Well, it's like, aha, but why not have a sword that basically works like Excalibur from King Arthur?
Because the slow blade penetrates the shield.
Yeah.
Oh, and you have kinetic, right? As a
Hmm?
we were talking damage types.
Oh, yeah. So I was
Or
working
something
over... Yeah,
along
so
those
I was
lines.
like, what are the general categories of damage in and of themselves? You have mundane, which is the technological of this earth, doesn't have anything else. Like, you don't have any magic amperage pushing that thing anywhere. It's just mundane weaponry, which can be very deadly, very effective. Mundane, kind of misleading sounding. And then you have the next step up from that, which is like the, you know, like magical damage, which incorporates all the same things that mundane does, but it breaks the physics a bit, making it a trump card. Which is why whenever you say magical damage, you're going like, oh, it's a magical source. I broke it down into sources. So you can have a mundane source, which incorporates the ballistic, the kinetic, and the energy type weaponry. All of that is mundane damage. But it sits within that one bucket because it's all part of that particular world. And then you have magic damage, which can do those same things, but because of the fact that it's manifesting in a way that doesn't normally occur, it kind of breaks shit. So when you use a magical flame to attack someone, it kind of eats through things like it's not there. It behaves differently because what's happening is the mage is basically going like, I want to burn that dude, and whoosh, his will is basically saying reality about this guy's armor is not really important. You know, you're getting the effect that you want, so it's a bypass. But you know, I don't remember the exact series of things that I came up with, but I was trying to determine the exact sources when it came down to it. It's like, what are these sources of damage and how do they function? I don't believe I actually... Yeah, I'm going to have to go hunting for it because I don't remember where I put it. But
That's why we have stuff in tabs.
yeah, I'm starting to organize
Right,
all
in
of
these
my
threads.
stuff and like starting to standardize everything so that I always know where to go to find what I'm looking for when I'm looking for it. But yeah, so like there's magic, there's mundane.
Oh, you
And-
had mundane as fire, electric, ice, and kinetic.
Hmm.
Then magical. Oh yeah, withering.
Yeah,
The magical conjured effects that do damage, and then withering. So the idea that is,
yeah, it's a contextual damage that overrides everything else. It's like
yeah.
you have mundane like a magic beats mundane, and then you have withering beats magic. Because even against a magical target, if it's the bane of that particular entity or creature, bye bye.
Yeah, holy versus
Yeah.
a vampire, or
Yeah.
silver versus a werewolf. Or
Yes,
something.
they are hyper specific to. They are contextually oriented. So you know, like holy damage against a mundane person is going to be no different than just being hit by a normal weapon or a normal attack. But you
Yeah.
reach the bane creature, then it goes. "Rrrr!" Yeah, and so it's
Well,
like
that's why Barrack has 7 different sets of bullets.
right. And well,
Depending on
and that's
what
why
he's
they have such a
fighting.
lucrative business, is because they have to come up with all different kinds of ways to
Yeah.
make that crap available. And then, you know, the other part too, as far as like the final form or the final like damage modification that we had to put in there, was massive damage, because we had to deal with the fact that like I don't want to sit there and like make ridiculous numbers.
Right.
I was just basically
From a
going like,
tank or
yeah, because like whenever it comes down to vehicle on vehicle or power armor v power armor, I can say this is how much damage is being done, and I can keep my armors at the levels that they're supposed to be. I just have a level of interpretation instead. So if you have vehicle weapons or large weapons, anything that's like bigger, meant to take on larger targets, those things will fire at each other, and the damage is counted as if it were between two standard targets, because they are fitted for that. If that vehicle, or if that, that particular weapon is turned onto a standard target, which is usually just like an armored person,
Obliterated.
yes, That's exactly right. So all damage against standard targets from massive damage weapons are doubled. Period. So if you're already doing this like if you've got a 15 damage weapon and you fire it at a standard target, that's doing 30 damage a shot. That's psychotic. So and it should be that way. I don't know a lot of people that can stand up against a 90mm tank round. It just doesn't make sense. So massive damage was a thing. So yeah, we have mundane, massive, withering. Yeah. Those
I
are
like the words you're using. Withering makes a lot of sense.
And withering, it feels nasty.
Yeah, it should give you a sense of being corroded, because what it does is it completely stops like regenerative capabilities. It turns the wound that they suffer from that is poisoned in a way. Like they can't get around it. They can't deal with it.
Gangrene.
Well, like how much would we have wanted to do withering damage in a boss fight? Like, right? Like,
I'm going to tell you right now that gives Ivar some ideas. Ivar just like grabs something from his body and flicks it at the enemy and somehow like causes it to just like acidically eat away and rapidly cause an infection that will kill them.
Yeah, and so you could end up trying to find out what the bane of that creature is, because the physiology that we're dealing with here, like I said, that's the thing about any type of withering damage, is that it is context based. If you can figure out what their vulnerability is, or what they are vulnerable to, or what their allergy is, however you want to phrase it, if you can figure that out, you'll be doing consummately way more damage. They cannot regenerate. They cannot get past it. It's basically you do not pass go at this point.
That's a legend lore, occult lore.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like that's another thing that can come out of those checks.
Yes, another thing for skills. Yep.
Is that this appears to be match up with this legend that says wrought iron is
Raw dog, rawhide.
Rawhide.
That's what I meant to say. Rawhide.
You just throw a rawhide at a werewolf, it's gonna choke.
I think I killed Bill.
So what you need to do is go all raw dog that werewolf.
Red rocket that werewolf, and then you'll be good to go.
Well, somebody's going to have withering damage, but I don't think it's the werewolf.
Well, we do have to introduce, diseases and stuff into the game, right? So,
well, there's like a medical element too, and like the health and healing and the rest of that stuff, which is the other thing too. Is like I think we settled on something. I don't really remember exactly what it was, but it's notated somewhere. I do know that I was thinking about possibly making the base health level bumped up by 1.
to 5.
To 5, because there is a bit of a balancing factor. At least my instinct tells me that at a 4, lethality becomes a bit crazy. It's like I don't need to have like a marshmallow launched into somebody's face and have them take 50 damage. Like I'm trying to basically do a minor amount of I figure that
and it's like napalm when it hits.
Right. Plus 5 is that wonderful odd number that seems to like just do really well whenever you start compiling it together. Everybody can count by 5s, so it makes it simple.
Yeah.
Give me those 5s. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I was thinking that would be another change for the system upcoming. And then the really big one that we were doing with the HP characters is we were going like, okay, you big ass thumpers, instead of just being HP, we're going to go health level 1, 2, 3, that's it. And then you just get these massive fucking amounts of HP in each one of those. So,
because those are basically for like boss,
yeah.
like right, like so. One of the things
on a boss fight
that I've always loved is the 50% and then 25% like phases.
mm-hmm.
You've gotten them down to 50, and then now they unleash their weird AoE or they spray acid everywhere or whatever. And then you get them down to 25, and it triggers the next, breath weapon, earthquake, layer damage thing. And then you're in that race against time for that last bit.
Right. Well, and the idea behind this is that, if, like when you're dealing with any particular boss, let's just refer to it as a boss level type NPC or enemy. If you manage to knock an enemy down into their middle health level, that is going to either do one of two things: make them kind of have this sort of desperate panic moment because they've never been knocked down like that in quite a long time, or something along those lines, or they'll become completely incensed because they're nuts and go like, hey, I'm actually taking risk, this is fun, and they'll just go even more crazy. But they still have that deficiency applied, and it's just in bigger chunks, so they get the -3 than the -5.
Yeah, if we're having... So I wanted to go
So
back
who's going to take the
web-
classes on publishing? So that we can,
I already said that I would do that, remember?
Are you going to buy that software we were looking at?
I was looking at it.
Just maybe this time next year we'll be ready to publish, huh?
Well, that was kind of the prediction, actually.
Yeah.
Like I said, I
For
plan
your
on...
birthday 2022.
Oh, God, that'd be
We'll
crazy.
gift you a hardcover 4-inch
yeah.
thick D's Ramblings
Oh, my God.
organized into the CRP.
That'd make him lose his mind. That'd be a great gift.
Equipment notes.
Well,
weapons
and
list.
like I said, I'm gonna be like the whole thing right now is like it's unquestionable to me. I'm going to be pounding the living crap out of this because I want to get to a
It's that
point
picture.
where
the
yeah, just hammering it home because the right now the biggest, I think I said it really early on, the equipment listing and all of that was the part I dreaded the most because it is the fattest aspect. Not even. Like, Magic is going to have some stuff in there, but all it does is add more equipment, talismans in particular. It's going to add in talismans that you can buy and futz with and all that, so it's just more equipment. Equipment is the fattest section in this whole stupid thing, bar none. So if I can crank out this massive, huge, section of the CRB and get it really nailed down, because we're going to have to, like I said, I may still knock down certain numbers because it may not be low enough, to test its balancing out just a little bit, hence the 3.5 alpha. But I know that when we start the next one, post conclusion of the original game we have, we're going to go street level, full blown. We're going to make regular street level characters, and we're going to build them from the ground all the way up.
I like it. Sounds good to me.
Right, because we need to make sure that the system works from the ground all the way up to the high. And, like I said, the equipment is going to be the biggest bastard to fix, or at least get in there. And, I'm sure I'm still going to have name changes I'm going to throw in. Maybe I come up with another idea for another piece of equipment, which means I have to add the line and add the description and do all this other stuff. There's a lot of stuff to go in there, but once I get that systemic, I'm not going to have any problems, and I have to get the baseline for everything in there first. Because I want to get all the technology that's available and put that out there, all my crazy brain ideas about, the various slates that you can grab and, use and do all that, all of that. I'm going to go bananas. Those equipment lists are going to be psychotic, and people are going to just probably eat that up, because I don't know, if I'm being frank, the only system that beats this right now, hands down, as far as equipment's concerned, is Palladium Rifts.
I was going to say Rifts.
That's the only one I can think of, because every
That's where I
effing
got
book had more.
Tech. So, Ken, that's where I got the tech from, is
Oh, is that
from
right?
Rift, because they have... What world are you playing in? Is this where is society? What is the tech level? And they had it as a cap, so
Oh,
you
is that
could
right?
only use low and medium tech weapons. Or you're playing in a world that's set in 1925, so you can't have this type of ammo because it doesn't exist yet, and you can have everything before then, or yeah.
That's pretty funny.
The Rifts equipment, there's books of just equipment.
Yes, many of them.
That would insane.
Yeah.
When D has his company and he has full-time employees, that some guy's job will be just making new equipment.
Well, and that's one of the sections that I really want to make sure we spend time on. Not
The master of the equipment. Master of equipment.
the
Call them Master at Arms.
the GM workshop section
Yeah.
of the book, that I think part of what has made this so fun is, and Drew said this earlier, the creativity that you bring to it. Each of us has our own, biases and experiences and goals in playing. So, how can we implement that from the beginning so that everyone's not playing the same game of Shadows that we played?
Right.
Like, so yeah, building in something in the GM workshop of like, here's how you develop a scenario. Here's how you develop a corporation.
Right.
You want to have some corporation in your game that's not in anybody else's game. Here's how you can homebrew that. Here are parameters.
But should
Here's how
there
you build weapons.
Mm-hmm.
should there also be opportunities for people to play in some way canned storylines?
Oh, this would be easy peasy to do
Yeah.
that. As a matter of fact, that would probably be the
Talking modules.
one. Yeah, like that would
Yeah.
be like 100%. Not only possible, but highly encouraged. Like
And that's what I'm trying
I
to
mean,
do. when
Avra Thrall could be one of the first modules for like hero level.
Well, so D, like that's part of why I put that whole like corporation
hmm
organizations like section in there, right? So you can build out these paragraphs, and then a totally different GM who has no idea who any of us are picks this up and says, "Ooh, I really like this High Dynamite Corporation. I'm gonna make them the big bad
Right.
and create a story around this, you know, or the Technocracy. I'm gonna make my players are gonna be, you know, refugees from the Technocracy, and
Right.
this is what they're gonna do. Or they were, you know, here from Arasaka, and like,
Or I want to make the hidden court the actual, like, we're here, we've exposed that behind the government there's this hidden court, and
Yeah.
we got to get rid of this.
right. So that's why I want to have those big lore hits.
Yeah.
But then also some numbers behind it, right?
Yeah.
How many troops does Arasaka have? You know, to the nearest 1,000. They have 50,000. They have 2,000. Like that. That
Right.
matters.
Have any of you guys ever played or heard of the scenario game called Penland?
I haven't.
No.
So I'm actually going to be playing it. I wanted to play it next week, but I won't be playing until after winter break. But it's an old game. But basically, the premise of it is you're on an island. There are 6 countries on the island, and there are common things that are known by everybody on the island. But you also have a list of stuff that is only known by the president of your nation. And what it is, it's a World War I simulation game.
Oh, I
Where-
see this here.
Yeah, and it's almost on those lines where you could lay out certain, here's certain things, that are commonly known about these businesses, and then here's a list of, the boardrooms know what's going on, and then you can decide how much of that you want to get out, because you can make it look like, some of these companies are really upstanding companies, but, nobody knew that they were actually polluting the river on the side.
Yeah, there's a wealth of information that I want to make sure that we see something, some good fertile ground with good stuff, and then provide a player with, or a GM with those tools. You want to make a vehicle? Here are some guidelines for vehicles. You want to have aerial combat? We haven't had aerial combat in our game. We may never have aerial combat in the game, but you want to have aerial combat in your game? Here are the rules for how that works.
Right.
It
Well, and
just-
even
that-
better is that synergistically speaking, because of the way that I've got it set up,
Synergy.
yeah, the way that aerial combat would work would be the same thing as if you were fighting inside of power armor against other power armor anyway, and you'd just be doing it in the air. So you'd have the same system failure elements, the same AP elements, like all of that plays over. It translates to it scales, and that's my biggest bitch when it comes to certain games. It's like, do these things scale? Like, because a principle can work inside of any element within the game, and it will scale up to meet.
You guys ever listen to the Weird Al song, the business, or it's like, let me look it up. Mission Statement. Have you heard that song?
Oh god,
No.
no, I haven't.
Oh my god. Okay, well, we're gonna take a quick break here because I need
Yeah.
you guys to watch this.
Here,
I
throw
need
it
live
in.
reactions. Yeah.
All
There you
right. Okay, I'm gonna just let me know when y'all play it. We can do a 3, 2, 1 thing. Just
go. And has everyone got it up? Ready to play?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, go. Dude, this song is so incredible.
Oh man.
I just have watched so many of these videos with the hand drawing thing.
We must all efficiently operationalize our strategies. Invest in world-class technology and leverage our core competencies in order to holistically administrate
This is my 9 to 5.
exceptional
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Buzzword.
This is my 9
There's
to
nothing
5 for the
wrong.
last 20 years.
There's nothing wrong with leveraging things if you know how to leverage them correctly.
Management philosophy.
Well, I like philosophy.
With strong commitment to quality.
They're saying literally nothing too. That's the best part.
This makes me want to watch Better Off Ted again.
Great show.
Look, it reminds me that there's nothing new under the sun.
That was Synergy too, by the
Send this to my boss. This is exactly how she talks. Very good synergy.
Okay, good.
She's a legal officer for a startup. She has to have a good sense of humor.
The artwork is like clip art too. That's my favorite
I can't tell you how many videos I've seen that have been this
Yeah.
hand sketching.
Because
But
it's
I've
fun to
been paid
watch.
to
Oh my
watch.
god, yeah. Oh my
I
god,
love
it's getting all
the,
psychedelic.
because the
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we must monetize our assets. The fundamentals of change.
This
Can you
hurts.
visualize a value-added experience that will grow the business?
I'm gonna die the moment they say pivot.
Oh god. I hope they say pivot. Not to kill you, but just
I don't know,
they gotta
but
bring it in.
I kind of want to show this. I want to show this in my econ class.
well, you gotta monetize
State
your assets.
capitalism, everybody.
And tell them they have to translate it into English.
Give this to my sister. Holy
Is
shit.
this song amazing?
It's got so many elements in it musically. Like it's
Bringing to the table.
I'm curious if in all these drawings, is the same person doing all the drawings for all of these videos. Who like
It's not a real drawing.
Services and
no, I know that, but like
with cross-platform innovation.
I mean, it's a fake hand.
Soon we'll bring seamless
And yes,
integration, robust and scalable.
Oh my god, here it is.
Next generation.
oh my god, this ties into everything we were doing so hardcore, it's ridiculous. The drawings, the fact that there's like swords and cybernetics.
globalization is down. When did he make this song?
I know Drew was talking about music earlier.
Is Weird Al still making music?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
I didn't say pivot
crap.
though.
No, he didn't say pivot. Oh.
Yeah. That was spiritual.
Well,
I sent this
on
to
that
my
note,
like marketing people at Hawksoft because they actually like hit me with like synergy and some of the other buzzwords. And it was like, here, listen to this.
Yeah, we were talking today about our tech stack.
Yeah.
Got to monetize your assets.
Monetize your assets.
Well, okay
Uh,
then.
I think I'm gonna call it a night. This has been an awesome
Yeah.
discussion. It's a way to kick off the month of D.
The
Yeah.
month of D.
the month of D.
And I'm not
I like
saying
it.
I'm gonna go watch episode 5 of Wheel of Time, but I'm not saying I'm not gonna go watch episode 5 of Wheel of Time.
I'm not saying that I'm creating a dummy account so that my wife doesn't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You saw how she reacts.
Yeah.
Did she have any reaction to
Layla.
the fact
Hey,
that
so-
Layla actually
Oh,
Layla actually existed.
yeah.
I
yeah.
just got to the chapter
And-
when
and I-
Perrin returns to the Two Rivers, and he's like, he recognized that girl. He danced with her often. He thought about marrying her once, and now she looks dumpy and has a kid. And he's like, "Whew, dodge that bullet."
No, so I mentioned that point to Kimmy, and she goes, "I fucking know. I don't care. It's still goddamn lazy writing."
Well, I wonder if they're still gonna murder all of Perrin's family, because
I mean,
that happened in the same chapter.
It's like I'm hearing
Well, I'm going to let you guys
spoilers.
do your Wheel of Time things. I have, for over a decade now, stayed away from it just on the principle that you guys love it, just so I can be different.
Oh,
Well, the first
So-
book came out 30 years ago, so
Well, there you go. And I am pretty beat. This has been a very long and horrible week, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's all
Well,
right.
hopefully this was a little bit of fun.
Oh, this is what I needed. So look,
Have
it
to
even brings to
administer the
light.
shit.
DPR.
The girl came back today and went 5150.
Oh yay! Well, that's fun.
And she brought it into my class, which I was very appreciative of. So they'll fill you in. Just make sure we're not live on the internet.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no worries there.
I'm a privacy officer. I would never do that.
Exactly. I'll talk to you later.
Bye, Drew. Good night.
night.
Oh, man. Well, in that case, I suppose...
And that was a perfect way to end our.
Yeah, it was.
Energy.
Yeah. Man, I guess, so what... I guess before we drop off, what do we want to hit for, like, next week since we're doing the whole month of D thing? Is there anything that, like, peeks out at you? Like, do we want to go over the magic, perhaps? Or do we want to... Okay, I think magic, too.
Magic would be good.
Yeah,
I think Bill
magic.
could have a lot to say about magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is
And I
the-
will not have anything to say about magic. Except my daughter has offered to draw the runes that we use
Ooh.
in our magic system. I think because
Hey,
she wants to
that's
use
awesome.
Procreate
Yeah.
on my iPad.
No, let her. Like,
yeah, let her
absolutely.
throw it at us. I'm down.
I was
We'll put her name
explaining
in there and
spell chains to her and everything, and she's like, "So who's drawing the runes for your spell chains?" And I was like, "I don't know, sweetie." She's like, "Can I use your iPad?" I was like, "For what?"
and you're
She's
like, okay.
"To draw the runes."
If she could, like, here'd be the interesting challenge. If she could draw the runes separately, but find ways that they connect together so they could create almost like Celtic knotwork or something along those lines, that'd be an interesting thing to see. Because that's what
Yeah.
spell chains basically are.
Yep, I love the idea. You're the more we do Wheel of Time, when they get to like Tarvalon and they start doing like really complicated spell, they call it weaves,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like
Lots of that.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well then,
All right. Good night.
good
Night,
night.
everybody.
Next week, magic. Y'all have a good evening.
Yeah.
And those of you watching, thanks for